Tuesday mornings were always slow in our house. It was the one day of the week where neither of us had early meetings. So I'd usually make coffee, sit at the kitchen table, and scroll through news or my calendar while the sun crept through the blinds. That morning felt no different at first. The dog was snoring in his usual spot under the table, and the distant hum of the dishwasher gave the house its usual domestic rhythm. Then my phone buzzed, just a quiet notification from our shared cloud folder. We'd created it years ago, back when we first got married. At the time, it seemed practical. Recipes, insurance documents, packing lists for family vacations. We used to drop in candid photos, random screensh *ts weekend to-dos. Harmless things. Things that meant we were connected, synced up, working as a unit. I tapped it without thinking, expecting something like a Target receipt or a picture of a new sofa she wanted to ask about. Instead, I saw her, Hannah. She was dressed up, seated at what looked like a high-end restaurant, warm lighting, candlelit table, tall glasses with amber-colored drinks. It was elegant, polished, the kind of place we used to go when we were still dating and trying to impress each other. The kind of place we hadn't been to together in over a year. And sitting next to her was a man. Tall, maybe mid-40s, clean-cut. I'd seen him once before. In a slideshow she showed me from a conference, labeled Project Team. His name was Alex, her boss. His hand rested on the back of her chair, not overtly grabbing, but close. Close enough. His fingers were casually curved inward, brushing against the fabric of her dress, like the touch had been there a while and neither of them felt any urgency to move it. But what shook me wasn't him. It was her. The way she looked at him, her eyes wide but soft, her smile open, effortless. There was a kind of warmth in her expression that had been absent from our life for a long time. It wasn't flirtatious in the obvious sense. It wasn't graphic or over the top. It was worse than that. It was genuine. And then I saw the caption. Best night. Thanks. Boss Red Heart. That red heart. It just hung there, taunting me. Not a casual thumbs up. Not a wine glass emoji. A heart. A deliberate choice. I read the caption again. And again. My hands had gone cold. My coffee now forgotten and cooling beside me. I clicked the image, wondering if it had been posted by mistake. Maybe it was meant for a private album. Maybe she didn't know it uploaded. But it had come from her phone. Our folder was still synced. Whether intentional or careless, she'd left a breadcrumb. That photo didn't scream guilt, at least not in the traditional sense. It looked celebratory, like she was proud of something, proud enough to memorialize it. I sat there for several minutes, just staring at it, trying to reason with myself. Maybe I was overthinking it. Maybe it was a totally innocent moment captured at an unfortunate angle. Maybe thanks, Boss Red Heart, was something women said now. Maybe I was being old-fashioned. But I knew better. I've known her long enough to read the subtext in her expressions. That wasn't a coworker smile. That was the way she used to look at me. And I hadn't seen that version of her in a long, long time. I didn't confront her right away. I closed the photo app, locked my phone, and just sat there in silence. The dog lifted his head, looked at me, then dropped it again like he could sense something shifting. That entire morning passed in a fog. I barely got through my work meetings. I think I nodded at the right times. I couldn't tell you what anyone said. All I could see was that photo. Her hand resting on the table. His hand resting behind her. The kind of int asterisk Macy you don't stage. You just fall into. When she got home that evening, she was cheerful. Tired but in a light mood. She dropped her bag by the entry, kicked off her heels, and gave me a kiss on the cheek as she passed. Long day? I asked casually. She nodded, already heading toward the kitchen. Alex took the team out for dinner to celebrate the wrap-up. I told you about that, right? I shook my head. I don't think so. She paused briefly, her back still turned as she opened the fridge. Ha! I thought I did. Yeah, it was just a thank you dinner for the project. A nice place? I asked, watching her carefully. Oh yeah, she said, glancing over her shoulder. That French fusion place near the quarter. You know, the one with the crazy truffle mac and cheese? I knew the place. We had gone there once years ago. It had taken me 3 weeks to get the reservation for our anniversary. She'd loved it. Now she was going there with her boss. Just like that. Her voice was too measured, too upbeat. The kind of careful enthusiasm people use when they've practiced a story a few times in their head. I didn't press. I just nodded and said, "Cool. Glad it went well." She smiled at me, grateful I hadn't made it awkward. She poured herself a glass of water, scrolled briefly through her phone, and then started talking about how exhausted she was, how the team had been running on fumes, how grateful she was to finally have the weekend free. But all I could hear was the silence between her sentences. Something wasn't right. After she went upstairs to shower, I opened the shared folder again. The photo was still there. No edits. No deletions. Just one perfect, damning **T of something I couldn't unsee. I checked the timestamp. It had been uploaded at 1:27 a.m. That didn't line up. She'd told me she was home by midnight. Suddenly, little things started surfacing. Details I hadn't noticed until now. A couple weeks back, I'd asked her if she wanted to visit my parents in Baton Rouge, and she'd said she had a work emergency that weekend. Another time, she bailed on our niece's birthday party, saying she had to prep for a presentation. At the time, I took her word for it. Now, I wasn't so sure. And then there were her habits. Her phone used to be an afterthought. She'd leave it in the kitchen, forget about it for hours. Now it was always on her, even in the bathroom. I once knocked on the door while she was showering, just to ask if she wanted anything from the store, and I heard her phone chime through the running water. She said it was just Slack, some urgent ping from a teammate, but Slack notifications don't usually require your phone inside the shower. There was also the perfume, a new bottle I hadn't seen before, something bolder, muskier than what she usually wore. It sat right next to her usual floral one like it belonged, but it didn't. I asked her once where it came from and she laughed, saying it was a freebie from some office holiday bundle. And the earrings, the gold hoops she never mentioned buying. The purse from a designer I knew she didn't usually spend on. She told me she got it on sale. She said she'd earned a splurge, and maybe she had, but I wasn't sure she was splurging for herself. There wasn't a single moment where everything cracked open. No smoking *N. No lipstick-stained collar. Just a slow, steady drift of reality peeling away. And that one photo, was the thread that unraveled it all. She came back downstairs in sweats, hair damp, carrying her laptop. Said she had one last deliverable to send before she could fully relax. I watched her from the couch, her face lit only by the screen. She didn't look guilty. She didn't look suspicious. She looked normal. And that's what scared me the most. The thing about suspicion is that once it settles in, it multiplies. You start questioning everything, not just the present, but the past, too. You rewind moments, replay conversations, searching for cracks in the drywall you never noticed before. And once you do notice them, you can't stop staring. The morning after the photo incident, I woke up early, earlier than her. I lay there for a while, just watching her breathe. She looked peaceful, innocent even, and for a second, I hated myself for doubting her. I mean, wasn't this how paranoia starts? One photo, one caption, one flicker of doubt, and suddenly you're tearing down the whole house you built together? But then she stirred, pulled the blanket around her, and instinctively reached for her phone before even opening her eyes. She unplugged it from the nightstand and cradled it against her chest like it was an extension of herself. A reflex, one she hadn't had before. She noticed me watching and smiled, but there was a brief flicker in her expression, just long enough to register discomfort. "Couldn't sleep?" she asked, voice still thick with drowsiness. "Just woke up early," I replied, sitting up. "Mind if I make some noise?" She shook her head and rolled over, face buried in the pillow. As I walked toward the door, I glanced back. She was already unlocking her phone, tapping through it with a speed and urgency that didn't match someone who had just woken up. In the kitchen, I started noticing how quiet our mornings had become. We used to talk about everything. News headlines, what kind of omelet we should make, weekend plans. Now, the silence stretched between us like a wall we'd both learned to walk around instead of break through. When she came downstairs, she was dressed fast, hair still damp but pulled into one of those loose buns she wears when she doesn't want to be noticed, but also wants to look like she's not trying too hard. "I've got a Zoom at 9, she said, pouring coffee into her travel mug. "Then I might head into the office after lunch." "On a Saturday?" I asked. She paused. "Yeah, I know. Alex wants to prep ahead of the audit next week." I nodded like it made sense. But it didn't. "Not really. Want me to come by later? Bring you lunch?" I asked. She hesitated for just a beat, barely noticeable, then smiled. "That's sweet, but don't worry about it. I'll probably just eat something quick at my desk." She kissed me on the cheek and left. That perfume, the new one, lingered in the air even after the door closed. It was subtle but strong, like an echo that refused to fade. That whole weekend, I tried to shake it off. I kept telling myself I was being irrational. People change. Habits shift. Just because she locked her phone now didn't mean anything. Just because she started wearing new perfume didn't mean there was someone she wanted to impress. But my gut said otherwise. The next couple of days I started watching more closely. Not because I wanted to catch her in a lie. I wanted to prove myself wrong. I wanted something, anything, to confirm I was overthinking. What I found instead was a collection of tiny, inconspicuous shifts. She used to leave her phone on the counter when we cooked dinner together. Now, it was either in her back pocket or locked in her office upstairs. When I jokingly asked what her new passcode was, she smiled and said, "Gotta keep up with new security protocols." She laughed, but it wasn't the kind that invited laughter back. It was the kind that discouraged further questions. She got new earrings. Gold. Subtle, expensive. I noticed them as she walked past me one morning. They weren't her usual style, too bold, too polished. "You get new jewelry?" I asked. "Oh," she said, touching her earlobe. "Yeah, birthday gift from one of the girls at work. I thought they looked a little flashy, but they're fun, right?" She moved on before I could ask which girl. Another night, we were supposed to have dinner with my sister and her husband. A casual thing. Grilled chicken, wine, board games. 10 minutes before we were supposed to leave, Hannah got a text. I didn't see the sender, but I saw the way her posture shifted, like the air had changed in the room. "Crap," she said, her tone suddenly sharp. "I have to jump on a call. Emergency launch issue. Can't it wait?" She was already walking into the hallway. "Nope." Alex flagged it. Could be a serious data issue. She locked herself in the home office for 2 hours. I waited, kept the wine cold. Eventually, I went alone. My sister asked if everything was okay. I said yeah. I lied. That night, I sat on the edge of our bed and stared at the floor. She was brushing her teeth. I could hear the water running. I kept thinking, ask her. Just ask her. Say it out loud. But I didn't, because if she lied, I'd know. And if she didn't lie, I still wouldn't trust her answer. That was the worst part, realizing how brittle our trust had become. It used to feel like stone. Now it felt like glass. One tap, and everything might shatter. A few days later, something changed. It was subtle, but I caught it. She left her phone on the bed while she went to grab laundry. It buzzed. I wasn't going to look. I swear I wasn't. But then the screen lit up again. "Alex. That last meeting ran long, but I loved the ending. You looked incredible, by the way. No emojis. No heart. Just words. But they hit harder than any emoji ever could." She came back into the room, picked up her phone, and didn't say a word. Just tapped, locked it, and slid it into her pocket like nothing happened. I didn't say anything. But that night, I didn't sleep. I lay awake next to her, staring at the ceiling, feeling like a stranger in my own life. The house felt different now, like it was holding its breath. The next morning, I followed her car. I told myself it was just for clarity, for peace of mind. I waited until she pulled out of the driveway, then grabbed my keys, kept a few cars back. I half expected her to turn into her office complex. I wanted her to. That would have been clean, simple. But she didn't. She went west, took a turn I didn't recognize. 20 minutes later, she pulled into a parking garage connected to a hotel. One of those sleek, glass and marble places on the edge of town. She parked, stayed in the car for a few minutes. Then Alex pulled in, parked beside her. They didn't get out immediately. Eventually, she opened her door, reached into the back seat, and grabbed a gym bag. He got out too, holding his own bag. They didn't touch. Not yet. But they walked inside the hotel together like they'd done it before. I didn't follow them inside. I just sat there in my car, hands clenched around the steering wheel. This wasn't dinner. This wasn't an emergency work call. This wasn't nothing. This was something. And whatever this was, it had been going on for longer than I realized. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the dark outline of her dresser, the faint shimmer of that gold perfume bottle catching moonlight through the blinds. She was asleep beside me, or pretending to be. Either way, I didn't care. I wasn't angry in the way I'd expected to be. It was something colder than that. A quiet resolve. A line being drawn in my mind that, once crossed, couldn't be uncrossed. I had followed her to that hotel and seen enough. I didn't need more photos. I didn't need a confession. I didn't need to play detective anymore. I already knew. It wasn't just the kiss I saw when they left the hotel an hour later, casual like routine. It wasn't the change of clothes or the fact that she was wearing sneakers when she walked in but heels when she walked out. It was the comfort between them, the wordless ease, the rhythm of two people who had fallen into a pattern, who weren't afraid of being seen, who had stopped being cautious because they believed they wouldn't get caught, or worse, they didn't care if they did. When she came home later that night, I was already in the kitchen. She smiled, a little out of breath. "Hey, sorry I'm late." Alex had me reworking the numbers for the Q4 forecast. Took longer than we thought. I didn't say anything, just nodded, stirred the pot on the stove. "You already ate?" "Not hungry," I said. She stepped closer, hesitant. "You okay?" I looked at her, really looked at her, and for a moment I saw a stranger in familiar skin. "Tired," I said. "Going to bed early." She nodded, eyes searching my face, maybe looking for signs of suspicion. But I gave her nothing, let her sit with it. The next morning, I got up before her, went through the closet methodically, folding her clothes into neat piles. Every blouse, every pair of jeans, every dress I recognized from date nights that now felt like set pieces from a stage play I didn't realize had been canceled. I laid 2 suitcases by the front door. That was my statement. That was all I needed to say. When she came downstairs, she stopped in her tracks. She didn't speak at first, just stared at the bags like she was trying to calculate the weight of what they meant. "What is this?" she asked finally, her voice low. "You know what it is." Her eyes widened, voice cracking. "John, wait. Let's talk. Please." I stayed calm. "I saw you at the hotel yesterday." The silence that followed could have cracked glass. She opened her mouth to say something, but no words came out. She reached for the nearest bag like touching it might stop everything from collapsing. "It's not," she started. "Don't lie," I said, not loud, just firm. "Don't insult both of us with that." She closed her eyes like she'd been slapped. "It's not what you think." "Then what is it?" I asked, arms crossed. "Tell me, Hannah. What am I thinking?" She said nothing. "I'm giving you the chance to tell the truth. Once. If you want to pretend it was a mistake, that it's new, that it was a moment of weakness, fine. But don't stand here and rewrite the story to protect yourself." Her hands were shaking. She pulled them into fists at her sides. "It's complicated." "No. It's actually very simple," I said. "You cheated. And you lied about it." She sat down on the arm of the couch like her knees gave out. "I didn't plan it. I didn't mean for it to happen like this. But it did happen. And it kept happening. And you kept coming home to me and pretending everything was fine. I didn't know how to stop," she whispered. "Then you should have started by not beginning." We sat in silence after that. I wasn't going to fill the space for her. If she wanted to explain, she could speak. If she wanted to cry, she could cry. But I wasn't going to comfort her. Not this time. Eventually, she said, "Can we talk? Not like this. Not right now." I stood. "You can stay in the guest room for now. But I want you out by the end of the week." She looked up, startled. "John, please. I don't have anywhere to go yet." "Not my problem anymore," I said. "You stopped choosing this marriage a long time ago. You just didn't have the courage to say it out loud." And with that, I walked upstairs. She didn't leave. Not that day. Not the next. She started making polite gestures. Dishes done when I got home from work. Notes on the fridge. There's leftover lasagna in the oven. Small things. Almost like she was trying to earn her way back through domestic peace treaties. I ignored them, because it wasn't the gestures that hurt. It was the silence. The way she never admitted it. Never owned it. Just floated in limbo, pretending like maybe time would patch it over, like if she was quiet enough, careful enough. I'd forget the way it felt to watch her walk into a hotel with another man and walk out wearing a different outfit, a different smile, a different story. Every time I walked past the guest room and saw the door cracked, lights dimmed, I felt the weight of her presence in the house. Like a ghost of our marriage was still clinging to the drywall, haunting the rooms where we used to laugh. One night, I found her sitting at the kitchen table after midnight. Hair pulled back, eyes red, hands wrapped around a mug she wasn't drinking from. "I can't sleep," she said. I poured a glass of water. "Then go for a walk." She looked at me, flinching. "I know I hurt you. You ended us," I said. "That's not just hurt. That's death by 1,000 excuses." Her voice cracked. "I don't know who I am anymore. I don't even know why I did it." "You had a choice," I said. "You still do." That night was the closest she came to breaking. But even then, she never said the words. Never said, "I cheated." Never said, "I betrayed you." Never said, "I'm sorry." She danced around it, called it confusion, exhaustion, stress. She blamed the work hours, the long distance between our jobs, the slow erosion of our S*X life, the pressure to be everything to everyone. But not once did she own the choice she made to turn to someone else and hide it from me for months. Eventually, I stopped replying. Her presence in the house became like background noise, there but ignorable. We moved around each other like awkward roommates. The fridge got restocked. The laundry got done. She kept the guest room door mostly closed, like she thought privacy would make the shame feel smaller. And I let her stay for a while, because I wanted to see if she'd do the thing that mattered most. Leave on her own. Choose to go like she'd chosen to betray. But she didn't. She lingered, like a song that's already faded, playing one last note on a loop. She didn't leave. Days passed. Then a week. Then 2. She settled into the guest room like someone crashing at a friend's place after a breakup. Except the friend was her husband, and the breakup was a slow-motion car crash neither of us seemed willing to crawl away from. She never asked to stay. She just never left. At first, I tolerated it. I told myself I was giving her time to make arrangements. Find a short-term rental, maybe call her sister, or finally move in with Alex, assuming he was more than just a workplace escape. But every night she stayed, every morning she poured coffee like she still belonged, I realized something. She wasn't staying out of love. She was staying out of convenience. She'd broken the relationship, then tried to preserve the shelter it provided. And I had let her. That's what ate at me. Not her betrayal, though that still sat like a stone in my chest, but the way I kept surrendering my space, my peace, just to avoid conflict. She counted on that. Counted on my silence, my restraint, that I wouldn't yell, throw plates, change the locks, that I'd just keep letting her exist here, like nothing had happened. She tried to make herself smaller, physically, emotionally. She started moving quieter, walking slower. Her notes became shorter. Dinner in the fridge. I'll be out late. Didn't mean to take your charger. But the house felt louder than ever. I'd walk into the kitchen and hear her voice in my head, still trying to explain something she'd never quite admit. I'd sit on the couch and feel her absence from beside me, even when she was just down the hall. Every room reminded me of what we'd built, and how she'd let it rot behind a polished smile and a red heart emoji. She thought that staying out of my way was enough, that if she didn't bring up the hotel or the kiss or the lies, we could default into a new version of quiet civility. But I wasn't interested in quiet. I wanted truth, and if I couldn't get that, I at least wanted space. Real space. One night, I came home to find she'd made dinner. Lasagna. Her mother's recipe, which she hadn't made in years. The smell hit me as soon as I opened the door. Rosemary, garlic, fresh basil. She even lit candles. No music, just that artificial stillness, like a peace offering no one asked for. I stood in the doorway, watching her plate the food like we were still us. She looked up, startled, but tried to play it casual. Figured we could use a real meal. You've barely been eating. I stayed silent, walked past her, poured a glass of water. You don't have to say anything, she added quickly. I thought maybe we could sit, just this once. I looked at the table. 2 plates, matching napkins, wine already poured, a tableau of our old life, carefully staged, and completely hollow. I picked up the wine glass, walked it to the sink, dumped it out. She didn't speak after that. Just stood there, holding her own glass like it was an apology she didn't know how to offer. I want you to move out, I said finally, facing the window. Her voice cracked. I told you, I'm trying. I'm looking. No, I said, turning to her. You're waiting. That's not the same. She opened her mouth, but I didn't give her space to argue. You're staying here because it's comfortable, because it's easier than facing what you've done out there, alone. Tears welled up in her eyes. That's not true. It is, I said, voice steady. And I can't be the one who keeps holding space for you while you pretend we're still something we're not. I'm not pretending, she said, voice rising. I know I messed up. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm just... Then why are you here? I asked. Tell me, Hannah. Why? She hesitated, and that told me everything. If you loved me, you'd want me to be okay, she whispered. If you loved me, I said, you wouldn't have done this in the first place. She sat down slowly, like her legs couldn't hold her weight anymore. I don't know where to go. Not my responsibility anymore, I said. I gave you time, weeks. You used them to make yourself comfortable. That ends now. I don't have anyone else. You had someone at the hotel, I said, and for the first time I saw the flinch, the honest, involuntary reaction that broke through her carefully measured grief. Alex wasn't. Don't, I said. Don't insult me by rewriting it. The silence after that was thick. She didn't cry. She didn't plead. Just nodded, staring at the untouched plate of lasagna between us. I'll find a place, she said quietly. You have until Friday. She nodded again. I left the room, not out of anger but relief. The house changed after that. Something in the air shifted. She moved like a guest now, quiet, distant. She cooked less, stayed in the guest room almost full-time. I think she knew I meant it, that I was really done letting her claim emotional squatter's rights on what used to be our home. She started leaving brochures out, apartment guides, short-term leases. I caught glimpses of Craigslist tabs open on her laptop when I passed her room. A few days later, I saw an Amazon box on the porch with her name on it. A bedding set. Navy blue. Twin XL. She was preparing. Not for reconciliation, but for departure. And oddly, that hurt more than I expected. I didn't want her back. Not after everything. But watching her finally accept it felt like watching the funeral of a life I hadn't fully grieved yet. On Thursday night, I found her sitting on the front step with a box beside her. Shoes, sweaters, old cards we'd written each other in the first year of our marriage. She was staring out at the street like it held answers. Or at least directions. She didn't hear me walk up. You have everything you need? I asked. She nodded slowly. Almost. We stood in silence again. I think we were both counting the moments, waiting for them to mean something. I never wanted this, she said finally. Neither did I. I thought you'd fight harder, she whispered. I stared straight ahead. UK asterisk led what I would have fought for. Her breath hitched, but she didn't argue. I'll be gone by morning, she said. I nodded. She stood, picked up the box, and walked inside. That was the last real conversation we had. The next day she was gone. Just like that. No dramatic goodbye. No emotional breakdown. Just the echo of keys on the kitchen counter and the faint scent of her perfume lingering in the hallway. I walked through the house in a daze, half expecting to find her still in the guest room, half hoping this was some test of finality. But the room was empty, sheets stripped, closet cleared. All that remained was silence. But this time it felt like peace. The house felt like mine again. Not ours. Not shared. Just mine. And for the first time since that photo appeared in the cloud folder, I felt the tension in my chest begin to loosen. I hadn't forgiven her. I wasn't ready to, but she was gone. And that was enough for now. The first morning without her was the quietest I'd ever heard the house. No clatter of her mug on the counter. No hum of the bathroom fan. No soft padding of her footsteps upstairs. Just me, the buzz of the fridge, and the ticking wall clock in the kitchen that somehow felt louder than ever. She was really gone. And not in the slam door back in a week kind of way. Not the dramatic I need space version of leaving. This was quiet, final, administrative. She'd returned the spare key in a silent gesture. No envelope, no note. Just a cold strip of metal left near the sink like a resignation letter. I walked room to room that morning, not out of curiosity, but out of something else. Habit, maybe, or disbelief. I opened drawers to see if she'd taken the things I thought she might forget. Her passport, the jade bracelet from her grandmother, the backup charger we used to fight over. All gone. She hadn't left anything behind but dust outlines where her perfume bottles once sat and a few coat hangers on her side of the closet. The absence was eerie and real. It hit me hardest when I poured 2 cups of coffee without thinking and only realized it when I reached to hand her one. The muscle memory was still there. My brain hadn't caught up yet. I stood at the counter holding her mug like an idiot until the steam curled past my knuckles and reminded me that she wasn't in the next room. That she wouldn't be. So I dumped her cup. That became a pattern. Little rituals I had to unlearn. I'd leave space for her shoes by the door. I'd pause before turning on the bedroom light, out of habit, not wanting to wake her. I'd check my phone expecting some shared grocery list ping or calendar reminder. Nothing came. The shared folder stayed empty. No new photos. No red hearts. Just silence. At work, people asked how I was doing, but only in the polite, socially acceptable way. The "you don't really want me to answer that" kind of way. I gave them the default replies, hanging in there, one day at a time. Could be worse. What I didn't say was that sometimes I sat in the car 10 minutes before going in because I didn't know how to pretend yet. Or that I'd catch myself scrolling old texts from her, rereading casual messages about groceries and "don't forget to thaw the chicken," like they were artifacts from a different life. They weren't romantic. They weren't even interesting, but they felt intact, safe, from a version of us that still worked. I didn't tell anyone about the hotel, or the kiss, or how I'd known something was wrong for months but let it go on anyway. I wasn't ready to explain that part. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Nights were the worst. The house made different sounds when you were alone. Floorboards creaked more sharply. The HVAC moaned like it was morning. The bed felt too wide. I stopped sleeping on her side. Not out of spite, but because it felt disrespectful. Like I was trespassing on sacred ground, even though she'd burned the temple to the ground herself. I took her pillowcase off, washed it, put it in a drawer, and I waited for the emptiness to pass. Didn't. Not at first. A week after she left, I got a text from her. Just a single line. "I hope you're okay." I stared at it for a long time. Didn't respond. Not because I hated her. I didn't. I wish I had. Hate would have been easier, cleaner. But I didn't feel rage. I felt blank. Like whatever fire had once existed between us had collapsed under its own weight and suffocated itself. She texted again the next day. "I miss you. I still think about you all the time." I deleted it. Not because it didn't hurt, but because it did. Her messages came like breadcrumbs, as if she could lead me back to something that had already collapsed. As if she didn't understand that the version of us she was nostalgic for never existed. Not in the end. And yet, a part of me still waited. Still checked my phone more often than I'd admit. Still half expected her to show up at the door and say the words she never said when it mattered. Not, "I miss you." Not, "I'm sorry." But, "I betrayed you, and I know that means I lost you." That's what I needed to hear. That she understood. That she wasn't just sad we weren't talking, but that she regretted what she did because it broke me. But those words never came. Instead, I started to rebuild in silence. Nothing dramatic. No social media posts about fresh starts. No impulsive haircut. No gym membership or trip abroad. Just slow repairs. I deleted her fingerprint from the door lock. Took down the photo of us at that vineyard in Sonoma. Her head on my shoulder, wine glass in hand, both of us laughing. I put it in a box I couldn't bring myself to throw out yet. I took off my ring one morning without realizing it. I was shaving. Looked down. It was gone. I found it on the windowsill in the bathroom. Must have taken it off while washing my face and forgot. That had never happened before. I used to feel its weight constantly, like an anchor around my finger. Now I forgot it was even there. I stared at it for a while before slipping it into my drawer, next to the watch she gave me on our 5th anniversary. The one engraved with, "For all the time we still have." Irony's a hell of a thing. A few weeks later, I got a letter in the mail with her handwriting on the front. No return address. Inside, a card. No frills. No decoration. Just her words. "John, I know I don't deserve to say anything, but I'm gonna try anyway. You didn't deserve any of this. You were good to me, patient, safe, and I took advantage of that. I let myself drift instead of speaking up, and then I let it go too far. Way too far. What I did wasn't a reflection of you. It was a reflection of my own weakness. I lied. I betrayed you, and I'm sorry. I don't expect forgiveness. I just want you to know I'm trying to be honest now, even if it's too late. Thank you for the years you gave me. I hope one day you find something real, something better. You deserve it. Hannah." I read it twice, 3 times. It was the first time she had actually written the words. Betrayed. Lied. Sorry. Not dressed up with euphemisms. Not softened with excuses. Just truth. And that meant something. Not enough to change anything, but enough to feel like maybe I could finally let the rest of it go. That night, I walked out onto the porch with a beer and watched the sun disappear behind the trees. The air was cooler than usual. A breeze kicked up, the first signs of fall creeping in. I sat on the porch swing, the one we used to share, and for the first time in weeks I didn't feel crushed by the quiet. I still hurt, still wondered if I could ever trust someone again. Still replayed moments of laughter and wondered when exactly it had all started to fade. But I also felt a sliver of something new. Not happiness. Not quite. But something like possibility. And after everything, that felt like enough. For now, I started reconnecting. Old friends, weekend hikes, coffee alone without feeling watched by the past. The silence became comforting, not punishing. I even smiled at a stranger in the checkout line and didn't feel guilty. Healing wasn't dramatic. It was quiet, patient. Some days I still ached, but others, I felt okay. One evening, I ran into Claire, an old classmate. We talked like no time had passed. There was no rush, no pressure, just ease. We exchanged numbers. Later, I caught myself smiling for no reason. I wasn't over Hannah, but I was beginning to live again. And for the first time in months, the future didn't feel like a void. It felt open. Possible.